Good afternoon, LabRats, and we're back with a post from appropriate_bill_611 from 20 hours ago. What sort of remote job/field to get out of lab work? Let's see what recommendations that the comment section can give. What sort of jobs can we find if we wanted to get out of lab work? What sort of job fields can we market lab experiences as transferable skills relevant to their field? I want to work remotely, really doing anything. I don't have any specific thing in mind right now. Just long term, I would like to have a job where I can work remote. Anybody got ideas? Project management. Project management is often remote and you will work for a pharmaceutical/biotech company. The lab experience would be really valuable. Then can't you become what your boss is with more experience? I got out of the lab and sipping coffee right now in my yard and work from home most of the time by becoming the boss, a director. Just took a long ass time, but your bar may be lower than mine as I'm still in R&D and spent over 20 years mostly in the lab. I'm into this sort of position, but I'm exploring any avenue because I don't really care too much the specifics of what I do. I just want to have a remote job going forward, even if it's out of the lab support area and something else entirely. So you want your boss's job, essentially. What skills do you need to get there? Does your employer support the continuing education and development opportunities you need to build to that next step? Do you have room for promotion in your current job, or would you need to find another company with the same opening? Do you know anyone with experience in this? All I ever see is people on science Twitter dunking on academics trying to get these jobs because managing an academic research project doesn't count as real project management experience. Management in academics is helpful, but it is different. So it's not a complete waste and gives you some experience. I think the reason they dunk on academics is because a uni is very insular and a person can pass off management and problems to the larger uni staff, whereas in a lab you have to deal with it all. HR doesn't want your problem tech, your boss wants you to deal with them, etc. It's environment and mentally it's just different. It's easier if you pivot to project management in an adjacent industry than go back after 2 years with a PMP certificate. A lot of these management jobs like this are just people that worked their way up. Started as QC, QA tech, and just kept moving up. If at all larger company, they may have taken continuing education classes or workshops on specific laws or rules their industry follows. Many things are regulated, so if you want this sort of job, learn regulations around your products, and make it known you want to learn more and move up. There's nothing wrong with learning and then moving to another job if there aren't advancement opportunities at your current company. I can see where they're coming from. Managing a research project in academia is a bit different than a truly large-scale project in the real world. For example, I work at a chemical production facility where the floor is running non-stop producing product. From what I know of my boss's positions, managing this sort of project with everything involved is quite different than academic research. Not saying there aren't transferable skills between them, but still a different beast. One thing I would highly recommend is to identify individuals with interesting careers and ask them if you can do an informational interview with them to learn about their career progression. It's a great way to build networks and figure next steps. As an academic researcher, if you're good at managing, you could be a good project manager. It's a lot of organization and monitoring. In my lab days, so a month ago, lol, I was very, very good at managing multiple projects, sliding timelines, multiple stakeholders, etc. I also had experience managing a clinical trial biorepository, so clinical teams outside hospitals, etc. With all that said, solely going to a PMing role requires a lot more organizing and working with others. With that said, I don't get why science Twitter would dunk on academics trying to get these types of jobs. It's kind of like what Ben Affleck said in the DVD commentary in Armageddon. Wouldn't it be easier to train astronauts to drill instead of drillers to fly a space shuttle? Paraphrasing. It's highly dependent on the company, project. It's highly dependent on the company, project, etc. It's easier to train a researcher and manage projects than a project manager science. I would never have went with a PM role at a construction company, but biotech, regulatory, etc. is perfect for academics in my humble opinion. Patent work. I'm studying to take the patent. You don't have to finish law school if you have a STEM degree to become a patent agent. Makes even more money than working research and industry, and while at the start you have to work in an office as you gain experience, going hybrid slash full remote is basically what everyone does. I'm hoping it's a nice amount of reading cool science slash inventions without having to suffer through generating the data. You don't have to finish law school. Maybe a dumb question, but do you have to start law school? Not dumb. I was honestly confused about it as well. So specific requirements for qualifying to take the patent bar and thus become a patent agent can be found on the USPTO's website. A STEM degree is typically sufficient. I have a buddy who has a bachelor's in biochem, and he checked and said he qualifies. Granted, he's worked with many years in industry, and so I don't know if that, for example, negates the minimum being, say, a master's. I have a PhD in chemistry, which is why I qualify. I still don't understand how different it would be to have a JD and be a certified patent agent, though I assume that basically means you can be in court representing parties which are applying for patents or litigating with respect to patents slash its investors. I have no desire to be in a courtroom, mostly just to be able to get away from slaving at the bench all day, and I'd rather eat bullets and crank out grants. Patent agents, STEM degree plus USPTO qualified, and patent attorneys, STEM degree plus USPTO qualified plus JD, have different roles. Although patent agents and attorneys can both prosecute patents, applications with the USPTO, a patent agent cannot advise on things like licensing claims or infringement if the inventor is infringing or someone else is infringing. A patent attorney has a much broader scope of IP rights to cover, like trademarks and trade secrets. In addition, patent attorneys can handle patent litigation, lawsuits. That sounds interesting, sort of like document review and validation, but in this case for patents or inventions or processes? So I've been only recently looking into all of this, so please take what I say with a grain of salt, as I'm no expert. But basically, to the best of my understanding, there are two paths as a patent agent. A. Work for a law firm that collaborates with private organizations for prosecution of patents. This means that the actual creation and application for patents through the USPTO, or patent litigation, suing people for patent infringement and the like. Or B, work at technology transfer office, which is typically going to be a university or national lab. If you're USA, I'm in the States, so my knowledge is restricted to the USA, where you help PIs patent their technologies, etc. Field Applications Scientist. FAS, Field Applications Scientist. There are the people that go out and train others in labs on new equipment, set up demos, depending on the equipment, does the install. Lots of travel, but fairly decent money. Writing. Scientific writing. Any sort of data management, QC, QA being your best bet. I currently work in a data management role at a CRO. My boss unfortunately does not allow work from home, but depending on the position, and your boss, work from home is achievable. Plus you still get the data comprehension aspect of lab, which I appreciate. Keeps my brain sharp. Marketing. If you're willing to spend some energy learning from other good marketers. There are loads of good marketers in the lab equipment industry, but very few who know how to position equipment so the people in the lab actually feel the value of the product. Your insights from your time at the bench and your personal connections that remain in the lab are invaluable. If you had average marketing knowledge, you'd be an above average marketer because of your experience. Scientific equipment company service tech. Remote, but not work from home. I recently made the jump from working in a hospital lab to working as a field application specialist for a major blood bank vendor. The change in lifestyle is like night and day. Most of my job is training people on how to use the instrument, providing advice regarding its standard operating procedures, and validating any test the customer wants to run. There is a lot of travel, but it's all paid for, free food, free vacations, and quarterly bonuses depending upon how the company's performing. I was at MLS at a hospital for 3 years before I realized it wasn't for me. Definitely would look into this career if you don't mind traveling. It probably differs from company to company and the function of the specific role, but in your experience, is the travel regional, within state? Well, LabRats, I hope that at least some of this information could help some of you out in getting new jobs outside the lab. I mean, we could all use a pay raise, and certainly a bit more working from home and remote options. So, if this helps anyone out there, well, I'm glad it did.